Hi friends, my name is Danielle and welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm very excited for because it is my top 10 favorite books that I read in 2023. Now, I feel like this year was rather mediocre reading wise for me. I did read 178 books, but I feel like I didn't have as many 5 stars or books that I would consider favorites as much as I usually do. But I did find 10 books that I loved this year, and here is that list. For number 10, I have Natural Beauty by Li-Ling Wang. This is kind of a literary fiction novel that follows a woman who plays piano, and she gets a job at a high-end beauty store where she is kind of asked to do increasingly weird and uncomfortable things to continue working there. The reason she needs this job is to take care of her ailing parents, and she just kind of continually goes along with these very weird asks to support her family. I loved this book. I thought this was so intriguing. I loved the writing of it. This main character, who I believe is unnamed, is just so fascinating to follow from. It gets very uncomfortable at times with this interesting body horror type events, but nothing too disgusting that I was like, I could not continue reading it. But it was just my perfect mix of horror elements and a very interesting commentary on the beauty industry, especially the skincare industry. I loved this. The ending gets a little wild, which is perfect for me in a horror novel, and yeah, I loved everything about this. The next one that I have is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. Again, this is a horror novel, but I do feel like it's kind of horror adjacent. It is more of a almost historical romance with horror elements. So this follows 2 childhood friends. When they are younger, they are attacked by this creature. The boy believes that the girl, his friend, dies, and so he leaves. He is guilt-ridden and he leaves and never returns. Years later, they are reconnected and he realizes she survived this attack, and it's the rekindling of their relationship while they are dealing with not only these vampires that are near their home, but they are also dealing with basically the Texas Rangers. It is a very beautifully done story. I loved the chemistry, the slow burn nature of this relationship with these 2 characters. It is a bit funny that I liked this book as much as I do because it is historical, it is pretty heavily romance, it is almost like a Western, which are all things that I don't typically absolutely love, but there was just something about this relationship, the writing, it was just beautifully done, and I just loved this. The next one that I have is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. This is an adult gothic fantasy that follows this married couple where the groom is told that he is never to ask about the bride's past. But when her aunt dies and they are kind of summoned back to the house she grew up in, he goes looking for secrets about her and discovers some very interesting things, not only about himself, but about her and this house that they're in. I loved the writing of this. I thought it was just so beautiful, and I was just captivated the whole time I read this. And while I don't think this went in a necessarily surprising direction, I just loved the atmosphere, the vibes, the gothic nature of these characters together. It was just such a good time reading it. I just loved how the writing went, how I felt reading this book and this relationship as they are trying to come to understand each other. So I loved this. So this one is just one that I really thought of quite a bit since I read it. I read it first in the beginning of the year, I want to believe in January, and it's still one that I still think about today. For number 7, I have Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I feel like a lot of people are going to put this in their top favorites because this is just such a fascinating ride. So this follows a woman named June who basically steals her dead friend's manuscript and passes it off as her own, but she does do some very harmful and terrible things to pass as not white to make her story more authentic. And it is just about the lengths that she will go to keep that secret, to keep her position and all of this recognition that she's got from this book. There are some messed up things that this girl does, but I was just captivated the entire time I read it. I do think R.F. Kuang did a really good job kind of navigating this system of what it is like to be in the publishing world and how these people can do things like this. And June is not a good character. She is a terrible person, but it was fascinating watching her trying to justify every terrible action that she made and just anything she could do to keep what she had. So I loved reading this. I think I read it in like a couple sittings. It felt super fast paced, and I believe this is more literary, but it read like a thriller, and I had a great time reading it. The next one is kind of a little weird because it is a short story and it is 6 Deaths of the Saint by Alex E. Harrow. This is a Amazon original story. It is like 30 pages long. I read it twice this year because I loved the way this is done. I can't talk too much about the synopsis because it is only 30 pages. So this is about a girl that is guided by the Saint of War and all of the things that come with that. I just felt like this was such a powerful book that is really well done in only 30 pages. The way this was written was just such a beautiful experience. I loved how much emotion and plot was jam-packed into this 30-page story. I felt like I could have read a full novel of this, but I do think it was just so powerful being as short as it was. And I love this, and I will probably be reading this continuously, just try to see if there's more that I can get out of it, because this was just like the perfect little experience. The next one that I have is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. This is a mystery thriller that follows a family that, as the title says, everyone in his family has killed someone. The main character is reuniting with his family after he sent his brother to prison for murder, but while they are all together, someone gets murdered and they have to figure out what is actually going on. This is kind of campy. It is just so much fun. It is narrated as the main character telling you what's happening, but playing into all of the tropes and things that come along with a thriller and a mystery. And he just kind of lays it all out, but then there's still so many secrets that come out. This was just such a unique and fun experience that, like, I still think about this book. It was so much fun to read. I'm really excited for the next book that comes out. But this was just, it was so unique to me to read something like this that I loved it so much. I next have We Spread by Ian Reid. This one took me by surprise so much. I did not expect to love this book as much as I did. So this is a horror novel, again, horror adjacent. So this follows an older woman named Penny who is sent to live in a long care facility that was orchestrated by her long-term partner who has recently passed away, but unbeknownst to Penny herself. So when she is kind of forced to live in this place, she is taking it day by day, but as things kind of blur together, she is supposedly forgetting things, everything kind of, there's something that doesn't seem right, and so she is trying to figure out if she really is forgetting everything or if there is something more sinister going on in this place. And I cried at the end of this book. I really enjoyed the very ever-building tension of creepiness that ended up following this woman. And I still think about this book. Again, this is another book that I read at the beginning of the year, and I just loved reading this. It was sad and heartfelt and just had so much interesting commentary on growing older that, yeah, I still think about this book. I love it so much. I'm actually getting a physical copy of it pretty soon, and I will probably reread it because I loved it so much. All right, and then for my top 3 reads of the year. Number 3 is Confessions by Kanae Minato. This is another one that I did not expect to love as much as I did. I read this one because a bunch of the creators that I follow at the beginning of the year, this was on their favorites list. So I ended up picking it up and I loved it so much. This was my favorite thriller of the year, and I was really expecting to read something else that I would love more than this, but this one, nothing beat this one. So this follows a middle school teacher whose daughter dies on campus, and she knows that a couple of her students in her class are responsible for what happened. That is about the extent of what I can tell you what happens in this book, because this one takes so many different twists and turns that I really never saw what was coming. I was shocked on every single chapter. They are long chapters. So this is written from 6 different characters, and so you're getting more and more information on this event as the book is going on. So parts of it can seem a little repetitive, but I was so fascinated and just so hooked in to this book that I could not put it down. I thought it was so fascinating and so fast-paced for me that I was eating this up within a day because I just wanted to know where this story was going. And there is just plot twist after plot twist all the way to the end. I still think about this book. I love it so much. It is probably the best thriller that I've read in a while. It was so good. My second favorite book of the year was The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This is an adult fantasy that follows a woman that got out of the game of being a pirate many years ago to take care of her daughter and her mother, but she's forced back into that when she is approached by this woman to save her daughter. It is her kind of navigating how to protect her family while still enjoying what she likes out of life. I loved the character of Amina. She is kind of an older woman, and I loved how much of a badass she still was, how she could still do all of these things, how she is becoming even more infamous, on these adventures than she used to be. And I loved every minute of this. This character is just one of my favorite characters I've ever read about. She's just so fun to read, and it just made it such a good experience that I'm so happy that I read this, and I'm so happy to continue it. Like, I can't wait for more stories about Amina because she is just such a fun character to follow. And then lastly, my favorite book of the year is Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco. I have not read a book I've loved more than this since the beginning of the year when I first read this. This is an adult fantasy that follows a man named Remy, who is a vampire hunter and many believe is part vampire himself, but he has to team up with other vampires to stop and kind of figure out what's happening with these even stronger, more terrible versions of creatures. I just loved the character of Remy as he is developing this relationship with these other two vampires. It's a very slow burn relationship between the three of them. And it is just, it's so beautifully done. I wanted to stay in this world for as long as possible because I loved these characters. I loved Remy and how he is kind of coming to understand himself and be okay with other people loving him. And I loved this book so much. This is definitely my favorite book of the year. Nothing topped this from the beginning of the year. This one is still my favorite. I can't wait to read the next one, even though I heard many people say it's a disappointment. I'm still excited because this was just everything I wanted. So there are at least 7 of my favorite books of the year, including these 3 that I don't own a copy of, but hopefully will soon, even though I don't think I can get a physical copy of that short story. But either way, I do feel like this year was a good reading year. I do have a lot of books that like I absolutely love. Like, I love these books, but these are all books that I would be willing to reread because I did love them so much, and I don't feel like I get that every year. I always have a lot of books that I enjoy, but I don't always have ones that like I think I will revisit again and again and again. So that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite book of 2023 is. I would love to hear, and I will see you guys in 2024.